Well, good afternoon, everyone. Edmund DeVeaux, President of the New Jersey CannaBusiness Association. Just want to welcome you to our Lunch and Learn that we try to host most every Friday. And once again, we have a terrific guest, someone that was instrumental to helping create the legalization legislation. We'll be getting to our special guest in a moment. I just want to welcome you all to today's Lunch and Learn. I'd like to thank our sponsors. Our sponsors are Argus 365, a security firm, Burton, Trent Public Affairs, Curaleaf, current license holder and a member of the board, Eaze, Financial Resources Federal Credit Union, Garden State Greenhouse, the law firm of Inglesino, Webster, Wyciskala, and Taylor, Puffin Entrepreneurs and Investors, the Sheet Metal Workers, Local 19, welcome, Syska Hennessy, a construction group, the UFCW, Hugh Giordano, congratulations on the promotion, and Weeds Direct. Again, I'm Edmund DeVeaux, President of the New Jersey CannaBusiness Association. Today, I'd like to welcome you all to High-End Cigars in Scotch Plains, right on Route 22. Beautiful selection of cigars. There are restaurants located nearby. It's BYOB. Bring your own food. The cigars here are wonderful. Want to thank Anthony High for allowing me to do a Lunch and Learn from his location today. Well, everyone, as we get started, there's no shortage of kudos that we could give the legislative leaders that were instrumental in getting us to the point that we are today. We've heard from Senate President Nick Scutari, who was not just a legislator in the process, but was an author of the legalization bill. And today we have with us, joining us, the Assembly Speaker, the Speaker of the New Jersey General Assembly, Craig Coughlin. Speaker Coughlin has done a terrific job leading the legislature, leading both caucuses, a voice that has been supportive of the cannabis industry. So we'll wait and we'll confirm that the speaker is ready, but just want to give him those kudos before we get started. Also, just in terms, I saw somebody put in the News 12 stories that have been running about the CRC meeting and things that are going on. Look, as the New Jersey CannaBusiness Association, remain hopeful. We're not going backwards. We're not losing traction. We're moving forward. And so it's an important thing. I know that many times we get somewhat frustrated over the length of time that it's taken, but we are moving forward. So we're looking forward to moving forward. Please continue to network. We're going to check on the location of Speaker Coughlin, and we'll get with you momentarily. But I want to welcome a lot of you who may be coming for the first time. I want to welcome our repeat customers. Gaetano, good to see you. Joe, good to see you. Rob Mejia from Stockton, also great to see you. A lot of great firms that are in the networking feature. Looking forward to working with you all. Also, do check out our membership. If you're not a member of the New Jersey CannaBusiness Association, we encourage you to join. We represent not only current license holders, but we in fact recognize and represent all of the ancillary businesses as well as future applicants. So we're looking forward to working with you all. Please visit our website. We'll put that in the chat as well. And without further ado, unless you need to catch your breath, Speaker, but good to have you.
Hi, Ed. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much. I apologize for being late, and Ed, you did a wonderful job filling in there. So if I and then make sure if I need you to get me out of here in a hurry, I'll just let you fill again. But, sorry to be late. I appreciate it. Good to be with you, and hope everybody's enjoying the snow. So.
Well, Speaker Coughlin, thank you so much for being with us. Again, your work has been exceptional, being that the leader of the General Assembly. And so we'll get
Thanks.
right in. We'll get right into it.
I
I'll
like
turn it
this
over
guy.
to you.
So look, thank you again for letting me be with you, and thanks for coming together today. I look forward to the time when we're able to be in person together. I still think those are better. We're all a little worn out by Zoom, although I think it'll have a place going forward, right? For those meetings that really only need to be 15 minutes, we'll probably have some of those. For the larger ones, we'll get together. But it has been I think fair to say, a long and winding road for the cannabis industry here in the state of New Jersey. We started working on the bill, I think, in March of 2018. It was the first time that we did. We spent a considerable amount of time trying to get the bill done legislatively, because I thought that I still believe that would have been a better way of resolving the issue, because it would have provided the more flexible nature to that, which make, because by doing it constitutionally, we're still locked into doing some things that may be a challenge more in the future, because it was a huge seismic shift in public policy. Folks from my generation, not nearly as young as I look, grew up at a time believing that you're going to get in trouble for smoking pot, that it was illegal, that this was these were drugs, and so there was that seismic shift, and I think that weighed into some of the decisions of some of the lawmakers who were not able to find a way to support the bill. The other thing, of course, it did, and I think in the longer sense, the more profound thing that'll happen is we started a new industry. And that in and of itself poses a whole lot of problems. Industries generally spring up by themselves, right? Somebody invented the car, and then the car industry rose from that. They didn't start off with having cars and then decide we're going to turn this into an industry. And so you could see the challenges and the complications that would go along with achieving both of those goals, both the overarching public policy change and the compelling need to get the business side of this right. And so we worked through that process as well as we could. I think we ultimately ended up, I think both times we've ended up with a really good bill. We were able to pass the initial legislation through the Assembly. Weren't able to get it through the Senate. I think it was one vote short. And that's when we took to making a constitutional amendment and getting that in front of voters, who overwhelmingly embraced that, but left us with the details of getting back to a bill, and that in and of itself, the second iteration of that had its own twists and turns. That's why I thought it was, first of all, when you invest as much time and energy and effort and thought into the first bill, that's really why you want to get it across the goal line. I mean, it was really disappointing when we didn't get it out of the Senate. And so we went back to work, and because it is the right thing to do, I think that also we achieved a whole lot of social justice by doing the bill. The excise tax, if you look at the things that the money from the excise tax are to be committed to do, they should make a profound difference in communities who are affected. And the benefit will be the beneficiary of that if they're their longstanding history of being the victims, if you will, of the drug laws. That'll be very helpful. The commitment to use 70% of the tax, the regular sales tax, to achieve social ends is important as well. But what is critical is there's no money until there's an industry. And I should say a functioning industry, because I think the industry is there and the industry is ready to rock and roll. At least that is what I've heard from industry participants and leaders, and from New Jerseyans who, as we went through the process of crafting the first bill, everybody, when I say everybody, every legislator was contacted, I'll guarantee you, by some family, some friend, some next door neighbor, the son or daughter of your cousin who lived in, wherever, who wanted to get involved in the cannabis industry. It was the next, and I still think till today, it still is the next gold rush for a lot of folks. I mean, they see it as an opportunity to become entrepreneurs and to have success, which is great, right? That's what Americans want to do. We want to succeed. We want to be successful. We want to have the opportunity to make a fortune. And we tried to do that in the course of this bill. That's why we have conditional licenses, why we have micro licenses. It's why we allow delivery of some of the things, because they're all elements of the industry that people, in some instances with less capital than others, can get involved in, right? You can get a car. You effectively become an Uber driver and start your own business and do those kind of things. For some folks, that I've had to have that conversation too. Your cousin's kid says, "Hey, I want to get involved in the cannabis industry." Well, other than the fact that you smoke pot, what has led you to that? And they want to be involved. And you would say to them, "Well, okay, the first thing you do is you got to find a lot of money, and then you got to find a place, and it's got to be a place that understands what it's going to be about, right?" So there were lots of challenges that have gone along with it. I think ultimately we settled again on another good bill that does a lot of good things for society and does good things in springing up an industry. Where I'm frustrated, and I suspect many of the folks on this call are frustrated, is the amount of time it has taken to get us to the point where we're still not in the adult use space. And I know there's a number of people clamoring for licenses. They've invested millions of dollars to try to get their applications through the process, and we're still not doing that. So, those are real challenges. I certainly respect the commission's desire to get the industry part of it right. I mean, I think we've certainly passed the decriminalization part, and we've left the state of the state in that regard in a kind of an odd place, right? Constitutionally, it's legal to have marijuana. We have laws with regard to amounts and things like that, but I'm not sure anybody's enforcing much of this. And so we're sort of in an odd place. And I think we need, the one way to do this is to get licenses out, to get people in the recreational or adult use space and getting the industry up and running in a meaningful way. Because there's other things that flow from this, right? At some point, this is going to be an agricultural process, I suspect, as people who own farms and may want to grow marijuana there. Well, security things that will go along with that. There's a whole lot of things that will flow, and we don't want to lose crops. It takes a while, as I understand it, to develop a sufficient supply to get up and running. I'm always interested in how the magic works since you can't transport this stuff across state lines. It's amazing in a magical way, I guess, that the first seeds somehow manage to fly, I guess, and over borders.
Pollination is not against federal statutes, so we can.
Thank God for bees, huh?
So Speaker, you've touched on a lot of things, and thank you so much for that background. So the two things, if you want to kind of focus in on them, one, just for the education of all of us, getting to 41, that must have been a challenge between North Jersey, South Jersey, Central Jersey, conservative, liberal, getting to 41. And here you are watching, I'll call it a melee, right? You're watching the action. What was that like?
Well, it can always be tricky to have to get 41 because, for everybody on the thing, there's 80 80 assembly people in the General Assembly, 40 the senators. So, we've got to get 41, 21, and 1 each and every time we pass a bill. If you don't have 41, 21, and 1, you got a good idea, but not a law. This one, given the scope of it, and going back to what I said in terms of it being a seismic shift in public policy, undertaking the start of a new industry, you can imagine how challenging it was. Ed, to your point, it was, oftentimes there are regional considerations. For example, if something benefits the North or something benefits the South, you immediately kind of have all of those votes in place because they represent your districts and represent their region, and then you need to build out from there. But in this one, it wasn't really like that. It was different in that there were folks who wanted, there was on every level of every distinction. There was urban versus suburban. There was urban versus urban. Urban versus rural. All kinds of different considerations without regard necessarily to those geopolitical lines that have often provide the impetus and basis for some support. The overarching goal of getting this bill together was in some respects subordinate to each of those things. And candidly, the industry wasn't of particularly great help. Sorry, folks. First of all, everybody had a lobbyist, and everybody understood. Everybody who was seeking to get into the industry was fairly myopic in terms of wanting to protect the things that mattered to them, right? The things that they saw as needed to get in the bill in order to allow my business to grow, flourish, and be part of this thing. The challenge with that was there was no thrust, a unified thrust as to explain to people why they ought to do this, right? And so it was left to trying to cobble together from all of the members what it was that they needed, what were their concerns. And that's why there was so many iterations of the bill, because you'd include, delivery, for example. That became an issue at one point. Then there would be those who were in favor of it and those who were opposed of it. So you had to kind of build common ground around each and every aspect of the bill. And so it was more difficult, much more difficult than traditionally, even on a big economic bill, right? Like we did an economic incentive bill. We committed $11 billion in resources to try to attract people there. And there were myriads of that, from, mega projects to smaller projects to historical projects. And some of those are the product of trying to get people on board. That's the way some of these bills get put together, in order to gain support from, some folks. You have to give them something of what they want. But even in that one, the general notion of bringing jobs and keeping jobs and attracting businesses and competing with other states was universally embraced. On this bill, on the cannabis bill, that wasn't there. It wasn't there. As I said, there were generational concerns. There were challenges from some members who themselves or their children had drug addictions, and they were never going to get there. There were, police overtones. The police weren't necessarily in favor of it, and there were former policemen or people closely associated with. They had their own different terms. It was a whole myriad of issues that were much more singular in nature to individual members, and so putting that together it was painstaking work. And then there becomes a fatigue factor. God knows I was tired of working on it. I spent months and months and months on it. And just as you thought you were getting to the goal line, you'd lose a couple of votes. So this one was a really tough one, probably the toughest one we've had in my 4 years, in terms of the pure nature of the bill. And it wasn't it's funny because sometimes in some respects the politics of it can be easier in that it's clear and you're not going to do it. Here it wasn't as much. Certainly there were always political aspects to, and I say that because people are just mindful of it as they go through. It wasn't all that necessarily. It was the policy-driven objections, the industry. This isn't right for this. This is too broad. This is too small. Debates over whether we have home grow or not have home grow, and they can be very principled. You're still seeing some of those today for people who want to be able to allow home growth for medical purposes for people who can't afford it. So there were huge issues and huge policy concerns that made this one really, really tricky.
So it's fair to say then that there was, I guess, either the analogy, a lot of cooks in the kitchen, or just a lot of noise, right?
There are 120 chefs on this one, yeah.
Right. So looking forward, how much of the industry are you going to leave to the CRC, and how much of it do you think the Assembly will or the legislature will attempt to address?
So the plan was, and the reason for the creation of the CRC, Ed, was to create a body that would be able to be nimble enough to react to change. Put together the baseline things in accordance with the statute. Include a business perspective in terms of making that work as an industry, and then be able to be nimble enough to change things as the industry grew and developed. I mean, an example of this, I guess maybe this is I was not in the legislature, I think I was in high school, was the casino industry, right? I'm sure that bill was equally as challenging to pass, if maybe even more so. But there have been any number of amendments and changes as the industry grew and developed, and and now we're seeing this technology change, right? As we're now doing more and more online betting, things like that. So this is not the last cannabis bill we will ever do. Far from it. I mean, we'll probably be legislating in this area for decades to come, because the business will change, the nature of the industry will change in ways that I can't envision right now. Hopefully the folks on this call can, and you can, I know, but you can't, even if you know it, you can't really legislate it until you get closer to the situation, right? You can't, project out, 20 years and say, well, here's what we ought to be doing in 20 years. We can know where we're going to get to, but in terms of the technical things like that. So that was behind the CRC, and I think that's what their job will be in the years to come, right? Change this here, redo that, understand what it is. Now that often will necessitate legislation to go along with it, but I think the CRC is designed to be a driving force in the, in bringing about a successful, thriving cannabis industry.
Well, Speaker, I think that's encouraging to know that you're not going to be a passive participant in this process. So thank you for sharing that.
We're not afraid to legislate. I've been a speaker for 4 years.
Right.
First of all, we're New Jersey Democrats, so we're good at making rules. Secondly, we just finished the 219th legislature. It was, in the last 20 years, it was the third highest number of bills passed in one legislative term. Number 2 was back in 2000, but number 1 was in my first 4 years. So we do a lot of work. Let me put that in perspective for you. We've passed about 1,300 bills in the past 4 years. Other 4-year periods are probably somewhere in the 800 to 900 range. So we're not going to be afraid to legislate.
That sounds great. So as we're coming to a close, I want to touch on something a little different than the cannabis conversation, but it's one that I know will resonate. Look, the people that I've met, and I've met hundreds in the cannabis community here in the state, and I know that when it comes to feeling for others, thinking about others, this is a very generous community. And so one of your legislative priorities, and thank God for you, is dealing with food insecurity. And so if you want to share just some of those thoughts as we're nearing a close, I've known you for years in this role, and the work that you've done in terms of addressing food insecurity has been tremendous. So if you just want to share some of that
Sure.
with our guests,
that's very kind of you, Ed, and thanks for all those nice thoughts. Look, we have made a difference in the food insecurity world. I came to it as something that I had always been concerned about. Part of it is because me and my family are so incredibly fortunate. We never worry. I've never worried a day in my life about whether I was going to eat. Only, not whether, but what. And now with most days it's where, not. Although I was home a lot during the pandemic. That was one of the good things. I got to eat at home a lot, more than I ever did. But I was also looking for a way to use my office when I first got elected to do something that was beyond or outside of, I guess, the traditional legislating that we do. And I stole that from my running mate, Joe Vitale, who has done tremendous work for Habitat for Humanity in terms of raising funds for them, because we get these fancy titles and we're able to do good things with them, right? In addition to doing some legislating. And I was struck by the first time I came out, it was a St. Vincent de Paul had opened a society in Perth Amboy, had opened up a new food pantry. I came outside, and it really struck me that, the line inside wasn't bad. And then I came outside and there was a huge line. It wrapped around another building and things like that. And it is one of those things that strikes at the essence of what we are as a state. If we are a great state, in order to be a great state, we have to make sure that our folks people in the state of New Jersey have a few things. And one of them is the ability to be fed. I think one of them is housing, opportunity, medical care. But it's so primary because it can change your world. Think about what it would be like if every day your first job was to figure out how to feed your family that day. Think of all of the success it prevents. Think of all of the things that might otherwise be achieved by folks who don't have to spend hours trying to figure this out, and the incredible anguish of not being able to figure it out all the time. And so I think it's more than a governmental obligation. It borders on it. In fact, it is a moral imperative that we have, that we care for each other in that way. And so I've taken up that as kind of the cornerstone of my speakership, and I think we have done some good things. First, we've pumped tens of millions of dollars into food pantries and supporting food pantries and places like the community food bank in Hillside. And one of the things I found, first of all, it is universally bipartisan, overwhelmingly bipartisan. And something that we can all get around. We've worked to increase SNAP benefits. We've passed a bill and the governor signed the first ever and the first in the nation food insecurity czar, because there are so many folks who do this stuff and who want to be helpful, that there are food pantries everywhere. It started off that my experience led to me start to do a bowling event, which I've done now for the 12 years that I've been in the legislature, to raise money for the food pantries in my 19th district. And there's like 31 of them, because sometimes they close and open. 31 food pantries. And the pandemic has made it worse, right? So while we were moving towards it, and look, I hope that someday we won't have anybody in the state of New Jersey who's food insecure. Candidly, I doubt that will probably never happen, but we can sure as heck try to make sure there's as few people as possible to do it. So we're going to continue to look at ways to do that. There people want to be involved in solving this problem. People care about other people eating. We're going to continue that fight. And as I said, I've been very fortunate. Senator President Sweeney was a great partner in this. Governor Murphy's been a great partner in this. I'm sure Senator Scutari will be. And as I said, it is something that transcends party lines for sure. Making sure that, and then doing it in a way that makes people who are in need of food not feel bad about it. There is the stigma of having to stand in line to get like a soup kitchen kind of thing. Let's make it, and there are many places that do that. The nice environment for people to come in and get a meal or be able to take things home. Let's make sure that gets done with dignity. Let's make sure the kids have meals in school. That one of the reasons we moved it to, so the kids didn't have to come in early to get their meals. They wouldn't come, or it was a burden to get there early. Well, one of the things we've done is, we required it to be given to everybody. Why? Because, part of it, there are people who hide this because of the stigma of it. And partially there are people who are just embarrassed to do it. But if everybody does it, everybody does it. Everybody gets to eat. So we're going to continue to push that. And thanks for bringing it up. I really am flattered by that.
Well, Speaker, thank you so much for taking the time out and joining us. Everyone, thank you for joining us at Lunch and Learn. I'm Ed DeVeaux, President of the New Jersey Cannabis Association. I once again want to thank Speaker of the General Assembly, Craig Coughlin, for joining us today. Speaker, thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody. Ed, good to be with you always.
Great. Thank you for your support,
everyone. Thank you
for your support of the patient community. Lefty Grimes pointed that out, and we look forward to working with you this year.
Thank you very much, everybody. I appreciate it. Look forward to a good year.
Great.
And off we go, right?
Excellent. Thank you, Speaker.
Bye, Ed.
Everyone, thanks so much. Once again, I want to thank our sponsors. First and above all of this, I want to thank High End Cigars. Coming to you today from High End Cigars. Anthony Hyde, thank you so much for letting me do the Lunch and Learn. I also want to thank our sponsors, Argus 365, a security company, Burton Trent Public Affairs, Curaleaf, a current license holder and a member of the board, Eaze, Financial Resources Federal Credit Union, Garden State Greenhouse, the law firm of Inglesino, Webster, Wyciskala, and Taylor, Puffin Entrepreneurs and Investors, our new sponsor, Sheet Metal Workers, Local 19, Syska Hennessy Group, a large construction outfit, the UFCW, Hugh Giordano, congratulations on your promotion, Weeds Direct, and now I'm going to enjoy the Leaf by Oscar. I have the Sumatra. So High-End Cigars and Scotch Plains on Route 22. Thank you. We'll take a couple of minutes for you to continue to network in the chat. Thank you all very much for joining. Thank you.